You affirm the testimony about the report in this trial shall be the truth and right. Won't you take a seat in the witness stand? State your name again for the record. Spell your last name.
Melinda Worley, Worley.
Good afternoon, Agent Worley.
Good afternoon.
Could you tell the jurors where you work?
I work for SLED
And how long have you worked for SLED?
since August of 2011.
And what is your current position at SLED?
I'm currently a senior criminalist in the latent print unit of the Forensic Services Lab.
Can you tell the jury a little bit about your education and training and other experiences at SLED that have led you to this point?
Sure. I have a Bachelor's of Science degree in anthropology from the University of Tennessee at Chattanooga, a Bachelor of Science degree in Forensic Science from Mercyhurst College, a Master's of Science in Forensic Science from the University of Florida. And along with the master's degree, I also received a graduate certificate in forensic death investigation. I started at SLED in 2011 in the crime scene unit as a special agent. I followed through the training program that SLED provides in-house. I finished that, I believe it was July of 2012. And at that point, I was able to take cases as a crime scene agent. But shortly thereafter, I also started training in the discipline of footwear and tire tread examination. I finished that training in March of 2014, and so then I was doing crime scene and footwear and tire cases until August of 2022. I transferred out of the crime scene unit to the latent print unit. I also switched from being a Class 1 law enforcement officer, I was a senior special agent, to a Class 3 law enforcement officer, so now I'm a senior criminalist and a footwear and tire examiner.
And so, I mean, as far as crime scene goes, can you tell us about any special training that you have pertaining to crime scene specifically?
I've taken several courses in bloodstain pattern analysis, shooting reconstruction, archaeology, forensic archaeology, and clandestine graves, photography.
And back in 2021, you were a crime scene investigator, is that correct?
That's correct.
And now you are in the footwear and tire examination, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and what would be the appropriate title for that?
Footwear and tire examiner.
Okay. And what other additional qualifications do you have to examine footwear and tire impressions?
I've taken 2 40-hour courses related to footwear, and I've completed approximately 50 footwear cases since I was completed my training in 2014. I've testified as an expert witness 9 times, qualified.
Is that in state court?
Yes, ma'am.
And you said about how many, I guess, cases have you had where you have examined footwear and tire impressions? If you could give us an estimate here.
As far as the actual scenes I worked with that had footwear, or just in general footwear?
In general.
I think it's around 50 cases.
Your Honor, this time I would move to qualify Investigator Worley as an expert in footwear and tire examination.
Says the defense.
No objection, Your Honor. She's obviously qualified.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, where a witness, by virtue of their education and experience, become what the court considers an expert in some field, that witness can give opinions where lay witnesses typically cannot. And this witness has been qualified and now is accepted as an expert witness in the field of, is it footwear examination and what else?
Tire impressions, Your Honor.
Tire impressions. And you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. So, Agent Worley, back in June of 2021, what was your role at SLED again?
I was in the crime scene unit.
As a crime scene investigator?
That's right.
And can you tell us just some of the general procedures of a crime scene investigator who responds to a crime scene?
Sure. We are requested to respond to crime scenes anywhere in the state. When the sheriff's office or police department requests our assistance with a crime scene, we document the scene with photographs and draw sketches, take measurements. We collect evidence, document it, collect it, package it appropriately, maintain chain of custody.
Is there any special kind of protocol that y'all follow?
We do have a protocol manual, yes.
Okay. Do you ever wear any type of gowns or coverings or anything like that out to a crime scene?
We always wear gloves, no matter what. Depends on the scene, I guess, as far as if we're going to wear any booties or anything else.
Okay. Would it be normal protocol to wear booties to an outdoor crime scene?
Not the way we've operated now.
Okay. Why not?
It's not usually, not usually necessary, I guess, as far as watching where you're stepping and not stepping in blood or any tire or footwear impressions or anything. We just don't normally wear booties.
And when you're at a crime scene, are you looking for microscopic evidence?
Well, we don't carry microscopes. Other than swabbing items at a scene, we would collect potential evidence that way by swabbing it.
All right, let's move on to your involvement in this case. Did you have the occasion to respond to Moselle Road on June 7th?
I did.
Okay. What time did you respond out there?
I believe we arrived around 12:07 a.m.
Okay. And are you aware of what time this the crime occurred?
I'm not sure about the time it occurred. I know the time I was notified.
Okay. And what time was that?
We were notified around 10:33 p.m.
Okay. So it took you roughly 2 hours to get out to the crime scene. Why was that?
We respond from Columbia.
All right. So what did you see when you got out there?
The scene entailed the area where the kennels were located. There was a large workshop with an overhang on between the workshop and where the dog kennels were. There was a sort of gravel path, driveway between the kennels and that overhang. The sheriff's office had brought out a canopy to cover Maggie's body to protect her from the rain.
And what were the weather conditions?
It was raining lightly.
Okay. What is one of the first things you did when you got out there?
We met with David Owen, Special Agent David Owen, and regional agents to kind of get a little more information about what the scene entailed. And then we did a little initial walkthrough to see the sheriff's office had marked some potential evidence. So we walked around to see what was what and see if we could find any additional evidence before we started taking photographs.
Do you recall collecting a shotgun from Agent Daniel Greene, or excuse me, Officer or Sergeant Daniel Greene?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And how did that occur?
He had maintained custody of a shotgun and needed to transfer it to me. So he brought it over to my truck and we put it in a gun box. We took photographs of it and rendered it safe.
Was that gun loaded or unloaded when you took custody of it?
It was loaded.
And did you unload that weapon?
I did.
And why would you do that?
We always render a firearm safe before we transport it.
Agent Worley, I'm going to show you what's already been entered as Tapes Exhibit 4, along with the rifle, or excuse me, shotgun that was collected. Could you tell us what you have there?
One of the 2 shot shells that were in the shotgun.
And that's a shot shell that you unloaded from this gun?
That's right.
And what gauge is that?
This one is 16 gauge.
And the correct caliber for that gun is a 12 gauge?
That's right.
Since Daniel Greene collected that gun, did you take a buckle swab from him?
We did, yes.
And, why would you do that?
In case his DNA was on the firearm, we would need to eliminate him or know that was his.
Agent Worley, this is State's Exhibit 249. Does that appear to be the buckle swab you collected from Daniel Greene?
Yes, it is.
And how can you tell?
It has my handwriting, my initials. The seal tape has my initials with my handwriting for the date.
This time the state would offer State's Exhibit 249 into evidence.
It's admitted without objection.
Agent Worley, if you take a look at State's Exhibit 17, do you recognize what is in that picture?
I do.
Is that a true and accurate representation?
It is.
Got it. This time I'll move State's Exhibit 17 into evidence.
Identify what it is before we do that? I mean, no objection, no objection, no objection.
What is it?
It's the shotgun that I took custody of, and a 12 gauge and the 16 gauge shot shells that I removed from the shotgun.
It's admitted without objection.
Good for the jury. Could you tell us which shells we're looking at here?
The one on the left is the 12 gauge, and the one on the right is 16 gauge.
And those are the shells you unloaded from that gun?
They are.
And you described the crime scene. If you could, State's Exhibit 22. It's previously been entered. Could you describe that to the jury?
That's the large overhang on the side of the workshop, the doghouse that's just outside that overhang, and the Maggie's body is lying there underneath that canopy. The kennels are in the background.
How did you discover Paul's body or observe Paul's body?
He was when we arrived, he was still covered with a pink sheet, but we could tell he was lying face down, just outside the feed room.
And when you, how did you process the area around?
We start with documenting the area with photographs, photographing the evidence that the sheriff's office had already marked, do overall mid-ranking close-up of each item of evidence, photograph the victims as they were when we arrived, before the sheets were moved or anything.
This time I'm going to publish State's Exhibit 24, which is a sealed exhibit. Does this picture show how you found Paul's body?
After we documented him with the sheet over him and the coroner removed the sheet, yes, that is what it looked like.
And he appears to be laying outside of a feed room.
That's correct.
Did you process that feed room?
After he was removed from the area, we went in the room to process the room.
And if you look at that picture there, it appears that there's something laying on the back of his shorts there.
Yes, that's right.
And what was that?
I was told it was his cell phone.
State's Exhibit 25. Do you recognize that picture?
Yes,
And what is that?
that is the cell phone on the back of his shorts.
This time the state would move State's Exhibit 25 into evidence.
Okay.
It's admitted.
And this is the cell phone that was laying on top of Paul's body.
That's right.
Now, did y'all process the inside of the feed room?
We did.
Agent Worley, I'm going to ask you to take a look. It takes exhibits 26, 27, 28, 30. If you can. 31, 32, 35, 198, 199, 38, 39, 40, 42, 43, 44, and 45, please. Agent Worley, in general, what are those pictures of?
They're all taken inside the feed room. A lot of them are footwear impressions.
And are those true and accurate representations of the feed room as it was the night of the murders on June 7th?
Yes, they are.
Your Honor, at this time, I would offer those exhibits into evidence.
Exhibit numbers again?
Your Honor, that states exhibits 27, 26, 30, 28, 31, 35, 32, 198, 199, 38, 39, 40, 42, 43, 44, and 45.
They're admitted without objection.
Agent Worley, this is states exhibit 27. If you could tell the jurors what they're looking at in this picture.
That's a view looking from the door into the feed room.
And what can we see on the floor there?
Marker 1 is the shot shell wad. There's also suspected blood and tissue, possible pieces of skull on the floor.
And then looking back at that window.
There were several bullet defects in the window and the glass.
And it states exhibit 26.
That's showing the feed room also, but it's showing more of the door, the outside of the door.
And if you notice the top of the door, what can you see up there?
It looks like blood, and there's also hair on top of the door.
States exhibit 30.
That's behind the door to the feed room.
Okay. And what's back there?
There were two 12-gauge shot shells on the fired shot shells on the floor behind the door, and also there was hair behind the door.
States exhibit 31.
That was after we marked the two fired shot shells as markers 9 and 10, and also showing them the shot shell wad at marker 1 in the same photo.
And states exhibit 26.
And that's close up of the shot shell wad at marker 1, and there's also a partial footwear impression in blood.
And do we see some little round pellets there?
Yes, there were pellets on the floor.
$32.
And that's close up of the shot shells at 9 and 10.
Were those shot shells collected?
Yes, they were.
When those shot shells were collected, what did you do with them?
We photographed them first before we pick them up. We packaged them, write the information on the packaging as to what it is, where it came from at marker 9 and 10, date and initial and time it was collected.
And were they submitted to the lab and placed in these big plastic bags?
I transferred him to a crime scene lieutenant.
I'll ask you to take a look at these for me. Do those appear to contain item 1 and items 9 and 10,
Yes,
and also some other items that were collected?
yes. I'll wait to open them.
This time we'll have Agent Worley open the bags and remove items 1 and items 9 and 10. All right, so item 1 is what?
That is the shot shell wad that was at marker 1.
And how do you know that is the shot shell wad that you collected?
It's my handwriting on the box, my initials on the seal on the tape.
And then item 9 and item 10?
These are the two shot shells, fired shot shells at markers 9 and 10. This one is the one at marker 9. It's 12 gauge federal, and one at marker 10 was, I believe, Winchester 12 gauge.
All right, this time let's take and move items 29, the shot shell wad, and item 34, the 12 gauge federal, and item 33, 12 gauge Winchester, into evidence.
Okay.
Without objection.
All right, also in that feed room, we were looking at what appeared to be some bloody footprints. Is that right, Agent Worley?
That's right.
You can see those footprints here in State's Exhibit 27.
You can see them.
About State's Exhibit 35 here.
Yes, there are two right there at marker 1.
So right down in here.
Yes.
All right. So in your training and experience as a footwear examiner, did you have occasion to examine those footprints?
I did.
And did you have some shoes to compare those footprints to?
Yes, I took custody of the shoes that Paul was wearing when I attended his autopsy. I was able to compare those to the footwear impressions in the feed room.
And now how do you do that?
We make test impressions of the shoes after they've been photographed with ink on the bottom of the shoe. I have someone similar who wears the same size, usually wears the shoe and steps on a piece of cardstock paper. We make as many test impressions as we need to make sure I've gotten all the area at the bottom of the shoe. Then I reprint those test impressions on transparencies. It makes it easier to overlay those on top of the photographs of the unknown impressions at the crime scene. And I compare the unknown impressions from the crime scene to the overlays that I place of Paul's shoes.
So you make a transparent overlay and you place it on pictures to determine if they correspond.
That's right.
State's Exhibit 148. What is that?
That is a printed version of the test impressions that we created of Paul's shoes.
And State's Exhibit 199.
That one is the right shoe. The first one was the left shoe.
And there are, I guess, 2 impressions of each shoe there.
That's right.
All right, so using the impressions you made in the photographs, did you make any determinations?
I determined they were corresponding consistent with the outsole design of Paul's shoes.
We'll look a little closer here at State's Exhibit 38. I'm sorry, there appears to be some kind of shadow here on the Elmo. States 138, is that a picture that you used from the crime scene to compare to Paul's shoes?
It is.
And what did you determine regarding that?
That one was also consistent with the outsole design of Paul's shoes.
States Exhibit 39.
Both of those were the same outsole design as Paul's shoes.
And we'll go back to States Exhibit 40. And if you're standing in the feed room, what position are those shoes facing?
Those are facing the window.
Facing the window. Did you also notice the door of that feed room?
I did.
And what about the door?
There was a lot of, I guess, blood, brain matter on the outside of the door, not so much on the inside, interior side of the door. There's a little bit at the very top, and hair on top of the door, but not on the rest of the back of the door.
So States Exhibit 42 here. What can we see?
That's a picture of the exterior side of the door. You can see the blood toward the top of the door.
So that would be like the front of the door.
Right.
And States Exhibit 43.
That's also the front of the door.
Okay. And we can see some blood spatter up here in the corner.
Yes.
Would that be right?
That's right.
And then it appears to be hair as well.
Yes, that's right.
And we mentioned the defects in the window. States Exhibit 44 here.
Yes.
Can you see there? Can you see a hole in that window?
Yes.
And States Exhibit 45.
Yes, you can see one of the defects.
Okay. And do you recall how many defects were in the window?
6, I believe.
Later, do you have an occasion to go back out to the scene and examine that window?
I did.
At that time, can you tell us what you did when you examined the window?
We went to further document, take more measurements of the area. We scaled the defects and took several more measurements of where those defects were in the window.
I'm going to show you States Exhibit 114 and 115. Do you recognize those images?
I do.
What is that?
These are diagrams of the window that I created. One shows the interior side of the window and one shows the exterior side. Shows where the defects are located in the window and all the measurements that we took for each defect.
Now, at this time, I move States 114 and 115 into evidence.
They're admitted without objection.
Publish. We're looking here at States 114. Do I have that in the correct orientation, Agent Worley?
Yes.
All right. And can you kind of explain to the jurors the defects we're looking at here?
Sure. There's defects A through, I believe, G, starting from top to bottom.
So, like where it says defect A, defect B, what is that?
Those were the locations of where the bullet defects were in the glass.
So they're the holes in the glass.
Right. Yes.
And that is from the inside of the feed room.
That's right.
And States Exhibit 115 here. What is that?
That is the exterior side of the window.
So those are the same defects, but from looking from the exterior, like from the outside of the room.
Right.
And what was kind of the purpose of that?
In the event reconstruction would ever be done of the scene, it's necessary to have specific measurements to be able to place those bullet defects, those holes back in the window where they were based on measurements.
What else did you recall doing concerning the feed room?
We collected several of the shot shell pellets. We also swabbed the exterior doorknob of the room just for potential touch DNA.
Did you collect those pellets from the feed room floor?
Yes, we did.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to break for lunch at this time and resume at 2:20. Have a good lunch. Please do not discuss the case. You may bring the jury.
Jury is present.
All right, thank you. You may proceed.
All right, Agent Worley. I think we left off talking about some items in the feed room,
That's right.
that being items 17 and 14. I think in this baggie that you had cut open earlier, item 14 is in that bag. And item 14 is the pellets from the feed room floor that you collected.
Yes, that's right.
And how do you know that that item contains those pellets?
It's my handwriting on the envelope and the description of what I collected with the date, time, and my initials. And my initials and the date on the seal tape.
And does that item appear to have been opened or tampered with since you collected it?
It was opened by I believe, the firearms examiner.
Okay. And then item 17.
Yes.
This time I would offer States Exhibit 20, the pellets from the feed room floor, and States Exhibit 18, the swabs from the door of the feed room into evidence.
Says the defense.
Sorry, no objection.
You're admitted.
All right, Agent Worley, let's move on to Maggie. Did you have a chance to observe her body?
I did.
And where was it located?
She was just past the workshop overhang near the doghouse.
When you first got out there, could you see her body or was it covered?
It was covered with a pink sheet.
I'm going to show you States 52, States Exhibit 50, States 48, and States 47. You could take a look at those and tell us what, in general, they just depict.
These were photos of Maggie, the way she appeared when we arrived on scene, still covered with the pink sheet.
And are those true and accurate depictions of the crime scene where Maggie Murdaugh was found when you were out there?
Yes, they are.
Your Honor, at this time, I would offer States Exhibits 52, 50, 48, and 47 into evidence.
Your Honor, we don't have any objections to these, but I think we need to go through this process, at least on two of them, to have them submitted under seal and a placeholder put in the bag. Am I wrong about that?
This time we'll read States 52 through 48 and 47 into evidence.
Says the defense.
No objection.
Admitted.
And I don't have an objection. Either, and number, whatever that is.
Your Honor, we will seal States Exhibit 50 due to its graphic nature, and I'll prepare that placeholder.
Admitted.
Agent Worley, this is States Exhibit 47. If you could kind of describe that to the jury.
That's a photo showing Maggie's body lying on the ground with the sheriff's office canopy over her, looking toward the overhang for the workshop, and you can see the kennels off to the right.
And These pictures are kind of hard to see on the screen. Is Paul's body also in that shot?
You can sort of see the pink sheet that's over him, yes.
Like over in front of the feed room door?
Right.
And then Maggie's is in front of this ATV.
Yes, that's right.
And State's Exhibit 48.
That's looking from a different angle. Maggie, the doghouse in the background, the workshop overhang, and the ATVs to the right.
And then State's Exhibit 52.
That was after Maggie's body was removed from the area.
This is State's 50, submitted under seal.
A different angle of Maggie's body, I believe still covered by the pink sheet.
Maggie's body, where was she actually, what wounds did you observe?
She was lying face down, her both arms bent at the elbow, her right arm was bent toward her face, her left arm was bent underneath her body, her legs were straight out behind her.
This time I'll publish State Defendants Exhibit 2, which is under seal. Is that how her body appeared to be on the scene?
Yes, that is.
Now, when the body was moved, did you notice anything?
We located another cartridge case on the ground, approximately where her right knee had been.
So she was laying on top of a shell case.
That's right.
All right. And did you collect that item?
Yes, we marked it as marker 7, photographed it, and collected it.
And what, do you recall what kind of round that was?
It was a 300 Blackout.
I'll ask you to take a look at this bag and if you can remove item 7. Agent Worley takes Exhibit 68, item 7, the 300 Blackout recovered under the knee of Maggie Murdaugh. How do you know that is that?
This is my handwriting on the envelope, date, time, and initials when I collected it. My initials and the date on the seal tape.
And I'm going to show, this time I'll move State's Exhibit 68 into evidence.
Admitted without objection.
I'm going to show you State's Exhibit 61. Do you recognize that picture?
Yes.
And is that a, what is that a picture of?
It is item 7 cartridge case, located at marker 7 before we collected it.
Okay. Is that a true and accurate depiction of that casing at the crime scene?
Yes, it is.
Your Honor, at this time, the State would move State's Exhibit 61 into evidence.
See. Is that what you just showed me? Oh, okay, I'm sorry. No objection.
It's admitted.
And this is the shell casing here, shell case.
Yes, it is.
And this is a picture of it, is located at the crime scene, correct?
That's right.
Now, did you collect some other shell cases while you were out?
Yes, we did.
And if we're looking in some of these pictures, you see the little yellow placards there. What do each of those placards indicate?
Those are the evidence markers that the sheriff's office placed on cartridge cases that were on scene. Markers 3, 4, and 5 were all the same 300 Blackout cartridge cases.
So, how many Blackout cases did we recover from the scene?
Let's see. I believe it was 5.
And did you collect the cases that were at the scene?
Yes, I did.
Now, the items 2 through 6
2 through 7, yes.
2 through 7. And we already have items 7 up there. So do you have items
Yeah.
2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 there?
Two, 3, 4, 5, and 6.
And what are items 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6?
They are all cartridge cases, head stamped SNB 300 AAC BLK, collected from markers 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6.
And in this case, does the item number correspond with the case with where the marker was?
It does, yes.
And can you take a look at these pictures? That's going to be State's Exhibit 60, 62, 59, 58, 57, 56, 55, and 54, and also 53. And can you tell us in general what we see in those pictures?
These photos show each of those markers 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and before we collected the evidence. And also marker 13.
And are those true and accurate depictions of where 300 blackout shell cases were on the scene?
Yes,
Your Honor, at this time, I would offer State's Exhibits 62, 60, 59, 58, 57, 56, 55, 54, and 53 into evidence.
Show them to the defense.
Yes, Your Honor.
You're admitted without objection.
Shell cases that were collected, did you collect them and put them in these little envelopes?
yes, I did.
No objection, Your Honor.
Agent Worley, I'm going to get you to take a look at these cases one more time. This being now marked as State's Exhibit 63. You could tell the jury what that is.
This is a cartridge case, 300 blackout from marker 2.
And how do you know this is the 300 blackout cartridge case that you collected from marker 2?
That's my handwriting on the envelope, date, time, and initials when I collected it, and my initials on the seal.
What about for State's 64?
The 300 blackout cartridge case that I collected from marker 3. It's my handwriting on the envelope, date, time, and initials when I collected it, and my initials on the seal.
State's Exhibit 65?
Cartridge case collected from marker 4, 300 blackout. Has my handwriting with the date, time, and initials when I collected it, and the initials, my initials on the seal.
66?
It's the 300 blackout cartridge case from marker 5. It's my handwriting, my date, time, and initials, and my initials on the seal.
And then State's 67?
The 300 blackout cartridge case from marker 6 is my handwriting on the envelope with the date, time, and initials when I collected it, my initials on the seal.
Your Honor, at this time, I would move State 63 through 67 into evidence.
They're admitted.
And Agent Worley, what did you do with these cases once they were collected on the scene?
I sealed them in those coin envelopes that are in there with them. I transported them to the lab at SLED.
And when you got them to the lab at SLED, what did you do?
I transferred most of the evidence from the scene to one of the crime scene lieutenants, Lieutenant Todd Shank.
And does he take those items and put them in some sort of secure location, or what happens to them?
He would have logged them into our database and transferred them wherever they were going in the lab for analysis.
Right, I'm going to turn your attention now to what's previously been admitted at State's Exhibit 49, which I believe is admitted under seal. Now, if we take a look at this picture, you can see those yellow placards. Placard 2, I believe, would correspond with item 2, which has been marked as Tate 63.
Yes, that's right.
And Tate's Exhibit 53 here. What are we looking at here?
That's that cartridge case at marker 2 before we collected it.
And Tate's Exhibit 54.
That's a close-up of the same cartridge case at marker 2.
All right. Then we'll move to Tate's Exhibit 55.
So markers 3 and 4 are the cartridge cases at those markers before I collected them.
Okay. And I don't know if the jury can see those cases there. Agent Worley, Your Honor, may I have permission for Agent Worley to step down and point those 2 cases out to the jurors on this TV here?
Yes.
Right here is the one at marker 3, and then the one at marker 4 is right here.
Okay. And while you're here, Agent Worley will put up Tate's Exhibit 58. And in that picture, if you could point out any items of interest for us.
These are the cartridge cases at markers 5 and 6.
And
Sure if I can see the one at 5. One at marker 6 is right here.
And Tate's Exhibit 59 is a close-up there of,
Yes, this is the cartridge case at marker 5.
all right, Agent Worley, if you can take your seat, please. Thank you. Tate's Exhibit 66.
Yes.
And then let's go back here to Tate's Exhibit 58. Also in that picture, does it look like we might have some brain matter and some hair in that picture?
Yes.
Tate's Exhibit 56.
It's the cartridge case at marker 3 before I collected it.
And then Tate's Exhibit 64 is the actual shell case that was collected.
That's right.
Tate's Exhibit 57.
That's the cartridge case at marker 4 before I collected it.
And Tate's Exhibit 65.
Yes,
So that's the actual case that was collected.
it is.
And then finally here we have Tate's Exhibit 60.
That's the cartridge case at marker 6 before I collected it.
And what is also in that picture?
It's possible brain matter.
And Tate's Exhibit 67.
Yes, that's the same cartridge case.
That's the cartridge case that was collected.
Right.
Now, also, was there some kind of defect or something in the gravel that y'all inspected?
Yes, at marker 13 that the sheriff's office had placed, there was a disturbance in the gravel area that we dug into that area. We presumed it was a bullet strike where a bullet had hit, so we dug into that area.
And did you find anything when you were looking?
Yes, we found several metal fragments.
And Agent Worley, what did you just remove from this baggie from the crime lab?
These are the metal fragments that I collected from in the ground at marker 13.
And how do you know those are the metal fragments you collected?
They look familiar. It's my handwriting on the envelope, date, time, and initials when I collected it, and my initials on the seal.
Thank you. Agent Worley, I'm going to show you Tate's Exhibit 62. Do you recognize that picture?
I do.
Is that a fair and accurate depiction of bullet fragments at the crime scene?
It is, yes.
Your Honor, at this time I would move Tate's Exhibit 62 into evidence.
Okay.
You admit it?
And also for ID purposes only, Tate's Exhibit 102, the bullet fragments. And Agent Worley, Tate's Exhibit 62 you could tell the jury what is on that placard there.
Those are the metal fragments that we collected from the ground at marker 13.
All right, so what else did you see around Maggie's body while you were investigating the scene?
There was in the doghouse, the side that was facing her, there was appeared to be a bullet defect in the side of the doghouse.
Okay. Was there an ATV parked under that shed?
Yes, there were two.
Did you notice anything about the ATV?
There's appeared to be suspected biological material on the front of the ATV, sort of low down on the front of it.
And where was that ATV in relation to Maggie's body?
I believe it was off near her left side.
I showed you State's Exhibit 49. Would that be the ATV?
Yes, that's it.
And on the front of that on the ATV, there appeared to be tissues, you said?
Yes.
Right now, you mentioned the doghouse. I'm going to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibits 75, 74, and 73. How do you recognize those pictures?
These show the front of the doghouse and then a projectile that we collected from a dog bed that was inside the doghouse.
Are those true and accurate depictions?
Yes, they are.
Your Honor, at this time I would move State's Exhibits 75, 74, and 73 into evidence. Along with Exhibit 72. Thank you, Honor. State's Exhibit 72. If you could tell the jury where that doghouse you were talking about is that in that picture?
It is. It's more in the background of that picture.
Again, these pictures are kind of hard to see here. It would be in this area right here that I'm pointing to?
Yes, that's it.
And State's Exhibit 73.
That's
that?
That's the front of the doghouse.
Okay, then State's Exhibits 74.
That was the projectile that was in the bedding of that dog bed that we recovered.
And then State's Exhibit 75.
And that is the projectile that we collected from the dog bed.
And I believe that projectile may be in this bag you have here. Is that item 12?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And how do you know item 12 is that projectile?
It's my handwriting on the envelope, date, time, and initials when I collected it, and my initials on the seal.
Do you know anything else about that projectile besides that it's the one that you collected from the doghouse?
No.
Item number 12, State's Exhibit 76, into evidence.
No objection, Your Honor.
Admit it.
And Agent Worley, this would be State's Exhibit 76.
Yes, that's it.
Round collected from the doghouse.
That's right.
All right, now, after you had went out to the crime scene, did you make a diagram, piece together the evidence where you could see everything and how it kind of relates to each other?
I did. On scene, I do a rough sketch showing where evidence was located, where the victims were located. I take measurements to show where things are in relation to each other.
When you made that diagram, is it to any kind of scale?
No.
State removes tapes exhibit 77 into evidence.
No objection.
Submitted.
Permission to publish. Hey, Agent Worley, is this the diagram that you created after being out there on the crime scene?
That's the final diagram I created with a computer, yes.
Your Honor, may Agent Worley step down to kind of go through the diagram with yours? All right, Agent Worley, if you could just kind of walk the jurors through the crime scene using this diagram.
We have Maggie's body here, Paul just outside of the feed room.
You have to
Markers,
speak up a little bit.
marker 1 and markers 9 and 10 inside the feed room. And then we had markers 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 underneath her right knee. 8 tire impressions in the dirt underneath this overhang. Marker 12 was suspected biological material. And then marker 13 where we dug the metal fragments out of the gravel.
Okay, thank you, Agent Worley. Now, you just mentioned some tire impressions being here at item 8. What do you know about those?
They went straight through where the overhang was, went from one end to the other.
Did you do any kind of analysis on those tire impressions?
We photographed them with examination quality photographs on scene. I never had any, test impressions of any tires to compare them to do actual comparison in a report. No.
And why was that? Why didn't you do any analysis on the tire impressions?
We concluded basically the gentleman who took care of the dogs, I forget his name, he parked there regularly, and his tires were consistent with the design of the impressions that were there in the dirt.
So you essentially, they figured out who that tire impressions were.
Right.
And it wasn't necessary for you to do any analysis.
Yes.
Are you aware of any other tire impressions on the scene that you analyzed?
No.
As far as tire impressions in wet grass go, how would you analyze those?
All I would be able to do with that would be photograph it. That's not going to leave any kind of design characteristics from the tread of the tire in the grass. So I can't really do an analysis, a tire analysis of tire impressions like that.
Right, while you were on the scene, did you receive any items of evidence from Colvin County Sheriff's Office, Murdaugh?
Yes, I did.
And what was that item?
I took custody of a GSR kit and gunshot residue kit that was collected from Alex Murdaugh.
This time we removed it, and it takes exhibit 13, the GSR kit that Agent Worley collected from Colvin County Sheriff's Office, Murdaugh.
Okay.
Did it?
Also, in the course of your investigation, did you gather some items of evidence from SLED agent Katie McAllister?
Yes, I did.
Okay, and when did you collect those items from her?
On June 9th.
And what were those items?
I refer to my notes. I took custody of 3 shotguns, a rifle, fired and unfired ammunition, and empty boxes of ammunition.
And what did you do with those items when you took custody?
I transported them to the lab at SLED and submitted them to the lab.
And all this would, of course, be recorded on a chain of custody.
That's right, yes.
All right, moving on. All right, really, before we move on, the shotguns you collected, would those have been items 30, 31, 32, 33?
Yes.
Okay, and then, you collected item 34, which was a 30-round magazine containing 300 blackout cartridges.
Actually, 33 was the night vision scope on the rifle,
Okay,
and 34 was the rifle.
okay. All right, and then what other items did you collect? With the numbers, please.
Okay. Items 35, 36, 37, 38, and 39, 5 cartridge cases, head stamped S&B 300 AAC BLK that were collected from the ground at side entrance door.
And then, you collect item 40 from Caden Calster.
Yes.
Okay, and what was item 40?
There was an unfired cartridge, head stamped S&B 300 AAC BLK, collected from a Remington 20 gauge shotgun shell box from shelving near gun storage rack.
And then item 45.
45 was an empty 20 round box of S&B 300 AAC BLK full metal jacket ammunition collected from the gun storage room.
And then, items 46, 47, and 48.
Those were 3 empty ammunition boxes collected from the trash.
And then, I'm sorry, what did you say that you did once you received those items from Agent Callister?
I transported those to the lab at SLED and submitted them to the lab.
Did you test fire or do anything with any of that evidence that you collected?
No, I didn't do any of that.
Thank you. Okay, let's move on to the Chevy Suburban that was on scene the night of the murders. Did you observe that vehicle when you got to the scene?
I did.
May it please the court, Your Honor? Agent Worley, if you don't mind taking a look at State's Exhibits 104, 96, 97, 99, and 93. Or Exhibits 93, 99, 97, and 96, true and accurate depictions of the Chevy Suburban.
Yes, they are.
And State's 104, is that a true and accurate depiction of some ammunition that you located?
In the other vehicle, yes.
That was located in a white F-250?
That's right.
Your Honor, at this time, I would move State's Exhibits 104, 96, 97, 99, and 93 into evidence. We would also State's Exhibit 95 for ID purposes. Agent Worley, if you could open that up and tell us what kind of shell casing, a shotgun or shot shell is that item 50?
Can I get scissors?
Okay, so what is State marked for ID is State's Exhibit 95,
It's a 16 gauge shot shell, unfired.
a 16 gauge shot shell.
That's right.
Now I think when it was collected, it was marked as a 12 gauge shot shell.
That's right.
So what happened there?
I just made a mistake. I wrote 12 gauge instead of 16 gauge. It's clearly a 16 gauge.
Okay, and that is the shot shell that was collected from the floorboard of the back floorboard of the Chevy Suburban.
That's right.
Okay, and like you said, it is a 16 gauge instead of a 12 gauge.
That's right.
And it was just marked incorrectly.
Yes.
This time, the State would move State's Exhibit 95 into evidence
No objection.
as
Move
well.
without objection.
Thank you, Your Honor. The State would also move State's Exhibits 83 into evidence. And if Agent
It's admitted.
Worley, if you could take a look at State's Exhibit 83. Now, show you State's Exhibit 93. All right. If you could tell the jurors what's in State's Exhibit 93.
That's looking at the scene, the back of the Chevy Suburban there toward the right side.
And what side of the screen did you say the Suburban's on?
The right side.
And the Suburban was on the scene when you arrived, is that right?
Yes.
Now, when did you actually process that vehicle?
The vehicle was towed from the scene, the morning of the 8th, and then we returned, on the 9th to process the vehicle.
So on the scene that night, was that vehicle even searched to your knowledge?
Not that I know of, no.
Okay. And so when you went to search it, what did you do?
We document it with photographs outside, inside, search for any evidentiary value items. If we locate them, we photograph them and collect them.
And what did you locate in the rear floorboard of that vehicle?
The 16 gauge shot shell was on the rear driver's side floorboard of the Suburban.
That would be State's Exhibit 97
Yes, that's right.
and 96.
Yes.
Did you also process the vehicle to see if there was any blood in there?
We did.
And how did you do that?
We first looked at the vehicle with an alternate light source, see if we can see any indications of any blood in the vehicle. We followed that with a couple of different chemical procedures.
So did you swab some areas in that vehicle?
We did.
Okay. And what areas was that?
I can refer to my notes again. There were 10 areas total. It was the lock, unlock buttons on the driver's door armrest, the driver's side running board below the driver's door, the driver's floorboard, the front edge of the driver's seat, steering wheel, center of the driver's seat back, the front passenger door above the armrest, the front passenger seat bottom, and the front passenger seat back.
And State's Exhibit 83 is the actual swabs that you took from that vehicle.
Yes, those are.
And were those swabs presumptive for blood?
Yes, they were.
Were those swabs presumptive for blood?
Yes, they were.
And State's Exhibit 99 is where?
That's the steering wheel of the Suburban.
Later on, what did you do with those swabs that you collected?
I packaged them in separate envelopes, sealed the envelopes, labeled it with the description of what was inside the envelope, date, time, and initials of when I collected it, and I sealed it. And then before we transferred them to the lab at SLED.
And would you have submitted those to the lab for further analysis for blood?
Yes, that's right.
Later on, did you have another occasion to go back and process the Suburban?
I did, yes.
Could you tell us a little bit about that?
I returned at a later date to retrieve the seat belt from the driver's side of the vehicle.
And why did you want to retrieve the seatbelt?
For additional trace and DNA testing.
And when you retrieved that seatbelt, what did you do?
It was removed from the vehicle, included the strap, the buckle, the receiver, and then there were some hardware components that we couldn't separate from the seatbelt itself. I packaged it, I believe, in a paper bag to transport it back to the lab at SLED. It would have been packaged additionally inside of a box at the lab and submitted for testing.
So you removed the whole entire seatbelt?
Yes.
All right, Agent Worley, State's Exhibit 100, which is a little heavier than you would think for a seatbelt here. Can you tell us if that is the seatbelt you collected?
You want me to open it?
Okay, so if you could tell us, I mean, what we have there.
The entire seat belt, the strap, the receiver, the buckle.
Stretch it out.
Where it was mounted on the side of the vehicle.
Okay, so that was all removed and submitted to the lab for testing, is that right?
Yes, that's right.
Your Honor, the state removes case exhibit 100 into evidence.
Your Honor, I thought we agreed to mark these for ID until the person that did any analysis on it testified. Did I?
Smart identification at this time.
And if you'll turn your attention to the screen there, then you can set that seatbelt down. Y'all also, in addition to doing a search on the Chevy Suburban, you did a search on the white 250 truck, is that right?
That's right, yes.
And State's Exhibit 104. Were those 300 blackouts found in the truck?
Yes.
Okay. And do you remember where you collected those from?
I believe the center console.
And State's Exhibit 103. Can you tell us, is that the 300 blackouts that we're seeing on the screen there that were collected?
Yes.
And how do you know those are the blackouts you collected?
It's my handwriting on the box with the date and time and initials when I collected it. My initials on the seal tape on the box.
Your Honor, the state removes State's Exhibit 103 into evidence.
Sorry, which?
It's the 200 blackouts that were found in the white F-250 that are projected on the screen.
That's the white 250 Paul's truck left on the side of the road?
Yes.
Okay, no objection.
They're admitted.
Did y'all also process another vehicle, Maggie Murdaugh's Mercedes?
Yes, we did.
Were any items of evidentiary value collected from that vehicle?
The only items we collected are 2 sets of swabs from the interior and 2 sets of swabs from the exterior door releases of the driver's door.
Did you attend the autopsies of Maggie and Paul Murdaugh?
I did.
And did you collect any items during the autopsy?
I did.
And what were those?
I can refer to my notes. They were items that were collected during the autopsy that were transferred to me via chain of custody forms. From Maggie, I got clothes, fingernail clippings, projectile fragments.
Okay.
And from Paul, I also got his clothes, fingernail clippings, shotgun pellets, and wadding fragment from left shoulder and head, plastic wadding from left axilla or armpit.
When you collected those items, what did you do?
I transported them to the lab at SLED and submitted them to the lab for analysis.
Agent Worley, I'm going to show you items 66 through 69. Marks State's Exhibits 112, 111, 110, and 107. Are those items you collected from the autopsy?
Yes, items I took custody of at autopsy.
And what items are those?
The shotgun pellets and wadding fragment from left shoulder and head. The plastic wadding from left axilla.
Would it help you to open that bag up?
And the projectile fragments from Maggie.
Okay, so if we'll take those items out one by one. Okay, so what is that item there?
This is item 66. Yeah, 66.
Okay, and what is that actually?
That is the projectile fragments that were collected from Maggie at autopsy.
Okay, how do you know that?
That's how it's labeled.
Okay. We'll mark item 66 as State's Exhibit 112. Okay, what else do we have?
The item 69, plastic wadding from left axilla collected from Paul's autopsy.
Okay. We'll mark that item as State's Exhibit 111. Okay.
And then I also have the item 67, 68, shotgun pellets and wadding fragment from left shoulder and head collected from Paul's autopsy.
State's Exhibit 110 for the shotgun pellets from Paul's autopsy. Okay. Is there anything else in that bag?
There were 2 in this.
Pardon me?
It's labeled with 67 and 68, the pellets and the wadding fragment.
Okay, so the pellets and the wadding fragment are both State's Exhibit 110 from Paul Murdaugh, right?
Sure.
Okay. And what else did you collect here? We got items 70 and 71.
70 is the left-hand fingernail clippings from Maggie. 71 is the right-hand fingernail clippings from Maggie.
Okay. And those are marked as State's Exhibit 251. And what is that item?
This is a metal fragment that was collected. It was caught on the dress that I collected from Maggie's autopsy. I collected this metal fragment at the lab at SLED.
So you removed that metal fragment from the dress after the autopsy yourself.
Right.
We mark that as State's Exhibit 109.
Item 72 is the left-hand fingernail clippings from Paul's autopsy. And 73 is the right-hand fingernail clippings from Paul's autopsy.
Mark as State's Exhibit 252. Then State's Exhibit 113. What does that appear to be?
This was a shotgun pellet that I found among Paul's clothing once I got the evidence back to the lab.
Thank you. And finally, we have State's Exhibit 36. And those are the shoes that you did the inked impressions of, the footwear, to compare to those bloody prints in the feed room?
Yes, they are.
Thank you. Your Honor, at this time, the state would admit State's Exhibits 36, 113, 252, 109, 251, 107, 110, 112, and 111 into evidence.
Identification, but without the chain being completed, we would object to admitting them into evidence.
Which of those exhibits did not have any type of analysis done?
You know, I suspect they all did, but I'm sorry.
Yes, Your Honor, I believe they were all analyzed in some way.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay, Agent Worley. Also in this case, we just talked about Paul and Maggie's clothing. Did you analyze the defendant's clothing?
I did.
And I think we said earlier that his clothing was collected from Agent David Owen,
Yes,
and you received that clothing into your custody and submitted it into the SLED lab.
that's right. I took custody of the clothing before we left the scene.
So what kind of testing were you involved in regards to the defendant's clothing?
We processed the T-shirt and the shorts with LCV. It's a presumptive test for blood.
Now, what is LCB?
Leucocrystal violet is a presumptive test. Looks for the hemoglobin component of blood.
So what happens when you put it on something?
If it's reacting to the presence of blood, it's a presumptive positive test, and it'll turn purple.
Can LCB react to other things besides blood?
It can.
Like what?
Bleach, rust, I think are the main ones.
Okay. All right. So when you process the defendant's clothing with the LCB, what did you find?
There were several areas of staining that we had a presumptive positive result, several on the front and a few on the back of the T-shirt.
And what about the shorts?
In the shorts, there were a few on the front and back.
So when you got that presumptive test with the LCV, what did you do with the shirt then?
We documented the entire process with photographs, starting from taking it out of the package to before we did anything at all with it. We took photographs of the front, the back, inside and outside. Once we sprayed it with the LCV and saw all the stains that we saw on it, we rephotographed it again with a scale, without a scale first, then with a scale for each stain. Then we laid the shirt flat and labeled each of the stains with a letter and photographed it again with that letter and a scale in the photograph for each of the stains.
And you did that for the shirt and for the pants?
Yes.
Okay. And as far as your analysis goes, after the shirt was processed and shorts were processed with the LCV, did you do any further analysis?
No, I did not.
Okay. And now after something has been sprayed with LCV, what happens to that object?
Over time, any area of the object that came in contact with the LCV will oxidize and the entire thing will be purple.
So like right now, if you sprayed this paper with LCV and it didn't turn like purplish blue, would it eventually turn purplish blue even though there's no blood on this paper?
Yes.
All right. Let's move ahead to the search of Moselle. Was that property eventually searched by yourself and other agents?
It was.
And when did that occur?
September 13th, 2021.
And that was several months after the murders took place in June?
That's right.
And what parts of the area or the residence were searched?
We searched the entire residence. The main focus was the gun room on the first floor.
Okay, so could you kind of, I guess, describe the property and the areas that were searched?
There's the main residence, and then also there was a cabin closer to the kennels that faced Moselle Road, and then also the workshop that was located near the kennels.
Okay. And is the residence a fairly large residence?
It is.
And you searched the entire residence.
Yes.
And you mentioned the focus was on a gun ring.
Yes.
Where was that located in the residence?
It's on the first floor.
Did you find any items of interest in the gun ring when you searched it?
We did collect several items from the gun room.
Was the workshop area of the residence searched out near the kennels?
Yes, near the kennels, yes.
Agent Worley, I'm going to show you State's Exhibits 124, 123, 122, 121, 120, 119, 118, 117, and 116. Could you tell me if those are pictures taken during y'all's search that day?
Yes.
Are those true and accurate depictions of the search of the residence in Moselle and the workshop area?
Yes, they are.
Your Honor, at this time, I would offer State's Exhibits 124, 123, 122, 121, 120, 119, 118, 117, and 116 into evidence.
They're admitted.
Agent Worley, is State's Exhibit 116 a picture of the gun room there?
Yes, it is.
And State's Exhibit 117
Yes.
it appears to have a pool table and a little workout bike in there.
That's right.
And do you recall whether this door in the picture exits to the outside of the house?
Yes, it does.
State's 118. Is that the gun rack in that room?
Yes, it is.
Now, when y'all did the search in September, were any of those guns collected that day?
No.
So these are additional guns to the guns that had already been collected by SLED agents.
That's right.
Was there a lot of ammunition in that room?
There was.
Okay, about State's 119. Is that a box of ammunition?
Yes, it is.
Mixed ammunition?
Right.
In fact, was there this whole bookcase we're looking at over here, was that just full of ammunition?
Yes.
An ammunition bookcase?
Yes.
State's Exhibit 120.
That was also on that bookshelf.
State's Exhibit 121.
Yes.
That is 300 Blackout ammunition from this box,
That's right.
the bookcase.
Yes.
And was some of this ammunition collected?
It was.
And you said you also searched the work shed or hangar out near the kennels?
Yes.
State's Exhibit 122. Is that ammunition that was found in the workshop?
Yes, it was in that red bin on the workbench.
Okay. And we see ammunition in a little, like a wire tub and then in this tray.
Yes.
Specifically in Exhibit 123, what types of ammunition was some of the ammunition that was located?
It was one unfired cartridge head stamped Barnes 300 BLK. It's the one on the left. And then the 4 unfired shot shells, head stamped 12 gauge Federal.
And item 124.
And those were the boxes of 300 Blackout ammunition photograph.
Collected some of those for evidence purposes.
Not at this one.
But some of the ammunition that y'all found was collected for evidence purposes, is that correct?
Yes.
You could take a look at these items and tell us whether these were collected by you that day. This was some of that ammunition we were just speaking about.
Yes, these were all collected the day we did that search.
Okay, and where were they collected from?
From the desk in the living room was the cabin that faced Moselle Road. One cartridge from the Winchester box on the bookshelf in the gunroom, head stamp Barnes 300 BLK. One cartridge collected from the desk in the living room of the cabin. One cartridge head stamped S&B AAC 300 BLK from the desk in the living room of the cabin. One cartridge collected from the desk in the living room, head stamped Barnes 300 BLK. One cartridge from the desk in the living room, head stamped Hornady 300 BLK in the cabin. One cartridge collected from the Winchester box on bookshelf in gunroom, head stamped S&B 300 AAC BLK. One cartridge from Winchester box on bookshelf in gunroom, head stamped S&B AAC 300 BLK. One cartridge head stamped S&B AAC 300 BLK from the bookcase in the gunroom. One cartridge from the Winchester box on bookshelf in gunroom, head stamped S&B AAC 300 BLK. One cartridge from the Winchester box on the bookshelf in the gunroom, head stamped S&B AAC 300 BLK. One cartridge from the Winchester box on bookshelf in gunroom, head stamped S&B AAC 300 BLK. One cartridge from the Winchester box on the bookshelf in the gunroom, head stamped S&B AAC 300 BLK. And one cartridge case, head stamped S&B AAC 300 BLK from the bookcase in the gunroom.
And all of those items items 147 through 161, which would be states 128, 129, 130, 131, 132, 133, 139, 138, 137, 136, 135, 134, 140, 141, and 142. State removed into evidence at this time.
Witness no objection.
All right, we have some additional cases that were found.
One unfired shot shell from estate box on bookshelf in gunroom, head stamped Winchester 12 gauge.
That would be states 149,
One unfired shot shell, head stamped 12 gauge Federal from red bin on workshop bench.
states 150,
One unfired shot shell, head stamped 12 gauge Federal from the red bin on the workshop bench.
that would be states 148,
One unfired shot shell from nightstand in Paul's bedroom, head stamped Winchester 12 gauge.
states 147,
One unfired shot shell from Kent box on bookshelf in gunroom, head stamped Winchester 12 gauge.
That would be 146.
One unfired shot shell from the state box on bookshelf in gunroom, head stamped Winchester 12 gauge.
That's 145.
One unfired shot shell, head stamped 12 gauge federal from red bin on the workshop bench.
That would be states 144.
And another unfired shot shell, head stamped 12 gauge federal from the red bin on the workshop bench.
That would be states 143. Your Honor, the state removed these items, exhibits into evidence at this time.
Any objection?
No objection.
You're admitted without objection.
What else do we have there, Agent Worley?
One cartridge case, head stamped S&B 300 BLK from the sable and oak bag in the gunroom.
So this states 126 is from the gunroom. Okay.
One cartridge case, head stamped Hornady 300 BLK collected from black Ford F-150 under the driver's seat.
These states 127. The state would move states 126 and 127 into evidence. States exhibit 126, 300 S&B 300 Blackout, and 127 is a Hornady 300 Blackout. States exhibit 127 is from the black Ford F-150 under the driver's seat from a search on, let Agent Worley testify here.
That same search that day.
Not Paul's car, not Alex's car. I don't quite, Your Honor, I object on the basis of relevance. I don't know why a bullet from nobody's car that's involved in this would be relevant.
You're admitted over objection.
Thank you.
Okay, what other exhibits do we have there?
These are magazines containing ammunition. One of them contains 300 Blackout ammunition collected from the shelf in the gunroom. And then the other one is a magazine containing cartridges, 300 Blackout cartridges collected from the black Ford F-150.
Okay, so this item's collected from the black F-150. That truck was searched that day too?
It was, yes.
And where was that truck at?
If I remember correctly, it was in front of the residence.
There was a truck that was on the property?
Yes, it was on the property.
Was it on the property the night of the murders?
It might have been the one that was parked off away from the workshop.
Do you know why that truck was searched that day?
It was on the property, and the search warrant included vehicles.
And those items were found inside that vehicle?
Yes, one of these was.
Okay. And what is the other one?
That's from the shelf in the gunroom. The one from the gunroom.
That's one from the gunroom.
This one.
Okay, so State's Exhibit 152. What did you say that was?
A magazine containing 300 Blackout ammunition collected from the shelf in the gunroom.
Say remove States 152 into evidence.
Okay.
Admitted.
And then we had States 258. What was that?
Cartridge collected from the workshop bench, head stamped Barnes 300 BLK.
Did you collect any other items that day when the property was searched?
I don't believe so.
All right, let's go back a little bit in your testimony when we were referring to the 300 Blackout that you collected from Agent McAllister. If you wouldn't mind looking back at your notes. I believe you testified that that was item 34, but that was actually item 33 is the Palmetto State Armory PSA PA-15 multi-rifle with a night scope.
Yes.
That is item 33, the gun.
I have that the night vision scope was 33.
I believe if you'll look closely, you'll see where the gun with the night
Oh,
vision scope.
yeah. It's the gun with the scope on it, yes.
Is that correct?
Okay.
The gun with the night vision scope being item 33.
Right.
And then to clarify, item 34 would be the 130 round magazine containing the multiple S&B 300 Blackout cartridges. Is that right?
Right. It was separated from the gun when I took custody of it, so I logged them in as separate items.
But you did collect those from Casings.
That's right.
All right. And then also going back to the scene, you mentioned a projectile that was found near a tire impression.
Yes. We were setting up to take examination quality photographs of the tire impressions at marker 8. We located another fired projectile that was lying on the ground.
I'm going to show you State's Exhibit 250. If you'll take a look at that, could you tell us what that is?
And this is that projectile near the tire impression.
Your Honor, the state removes State's Exhibit 250 into evidence.
Not objection.
Agent Worley, I'll have you take a look at Mark 50. You recall collecting the shotgun from Officer Greene,
Yes.
or Sergeant Greene? You collected that gun. Did you swab it?
I did.
I'm going to hand you State's Exhibit 259. If you could tell us what that exhibit is.
I took 2 swabs of suspected blood from the side of the shotgun and 2 swabs from the muzzle end of the barrel of the shotgun. That was as a precaution when I was unloading the weapon. The 16 gauge shot shell got lodged in the barrel, and before I placed one of my own dowel rods down the barrel to push it back out, I swabbed the muzzle of the barrel just in case.
You swabbed it just in case what?
I didn't want to contaminate if there was potential evidence in the barrel or in the muzzle end of the barrel before I placed my dowel rod in that end of the barrel.
And the other swab, did it appear there was visible blood on that gun?
Yes. Suspected blood, yes.
Okay. And what did you do with those swabs once they were collected?
I packaged them in their envelopes, sealed them, and transported them to the lab.
Your Honor, at this time, the state would move State's Exhibit 259 into evidence.
Okay.
Further, did you collect some additional items from Agent Croft? I'm going to have you take a look at State's Exhibit 260.
I believe these are the ones I took custody of from Katie McAllister.
Okay, McAllister. Will mark State's Exhibit 260 for identification purposes only. It's cartridge cases that Agent Worley took custody of from Katie McAllister. And then also these items 40 through 44, which would be State's Exhibit 212, 254, 255, 256, and 257. For identification purposes only.
Yes.
And what are those?
These are the other items I took custody of from Katie McAllister.
Items collected by Katie McAllister.
Right.
Out of the state would offer exhibits 260, 212, 254, 255, 256, and 257 for identification purposes.
I'm not quite sure what they are. If Ms. Goude would come here, we could perhaps have a brief discussion.
Permitted for identification purposes.
Agent Worley, one more thing. State's exhibit 261 for identification purposes only. Can you tell us if these are items that you received into your custody?
Yes, they are.
Okay, and how do you know that?
It's my handwriting on this outer packaging.
So there are quite a lot of items in there that you received from, is it Agent Croft or Agent McAllister?
These, I believe, were ones I took custody of from Lieutenant Todd Shank.
Okay.
Let me open them.
But those are items that you took custody of.
That's right. And I logged them in to the lab. I didn't collect them myself. I got them via chain of custody, and then I logged them into the lab.
And that's State's exhibit 261 for identification purposes only. Any objection?
Identification only.
Yes.
Smart identification.
Thank you, Agent Worley. Please answer any questions from the defense.
Cross-examination.
Your Honor, may we approach? Right here. My cross-examination is with several items. And if we begin this afternoon, I'm afraid Monday morning I'm going to have to go through everything I went through today to ensure that there's some continuity there. In no offense to the jury, but I'm not sure I'll remember what I did today on Monday. So I would ask you if we could go ahead and take our weekend break today.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we will recess for the weekend and resume at 9:30 Monday morning. Please do not discuss the case.